What's up, everyone? I'm here today with a bit of a recap on my experience of installing Klipper on my custom 3D printer. Yes, this still looks horrible, don't worry. It'll get sorted out eventually. So, about a year and a half ago, I think it was, I installed Klipper using Mainsail as my front end for this custom built 3D printer. And I'm kind of here to talk about some of the challenges I experienced along the way, as well as some of the things that I have learned. And I'm here to kind of answer, because I would have liked to know beforehand, is it worth upgrading to Klipper? So, is it worth upgrading to Klipper? Long story, or short story, yes. Long story, it depends. So, Klipper is great. Klipper is modern, and it really, even on this printer, brought it what feels like into the modern age. If you don't know, most 3D printers for a very long time ran a firmware called Marlin. Now, Marlin was a spin-off of the GRBL or Garble CNC OS that ran on Arduinos. And Marlin had evolved into something quite incredible, honestly, that ran on a Arduino Mega 2600. And the fact that you could do as many cool things as you could do on that platform is kind of amazing. It is, in fact, still the platform that exists right here. You can't really see it behind everything, but that is still effectively, it's a MKS ramps style board, as many boards that you can get these days are, but that is no longer running Marlin. Now, I have another printer that was running Smoothie, which to me it was cool, but it was never... Cat intermission. Smoothie was never enough of an improvement over Marlin that I actually wanted to jump. I have it running on a Delta printer, but the only reason I have it running on a Delta printer is because you really can't get good speeds out of a Delta unless you use a 32-bit board or 32-bit architecture, which is what Smoothie was. But even then, Marlin caught up when it was available on some of the 32-bit Arduino boards. But anyway, before I upgraded this to Klipper, this was running Marlin with a Raspberry Pi 1. Yes, it's still a Raspberry Pi 1, and it did work. Running Octoprint. And that for a very long time was awesome. You know, you can connect to it via network. You can see this is also connected in with an Ethernet cable. And you could start prints remotely. You could add it into Prusa Slicer as a physical printer and control everything from there. So when I first looked into Klipper, it didn't really feel like it was that big of an upgrade. But I took the plunge. I bought the MKS Pi. That's the V1.1, although I don't know how many different versions there are, or if it even matters. And it was a fight. It was a fight for probably about 2 weeks to get Klipper working. And it was the same type of fight from when I very first built a printer and got Marlin working. You know, first you get a printer even moving at all, and then you get the end stops working, and then you get Z working and homing, and these things start falling into place slowly with the new platform. But eventually it was working and it was printing, and yeah, it's pretty cool. I'd recommend it, especially if you have a printer that already has a config for it, that you can just plug in a Raspberry Pi or whatever other controller for Klipper, and then just load a config and go. Do it. It's, I didn't understand just how big of an upgrade it was, considering the fact that this printer was struggling to print at above 40 millimeters a second, that I have tested it, not great, but tested it at about 200 millimeters a second is quite a testament to Klipper. I did not understand just how big of a difference just Klipper was. And some of that is the Trinamic drivers that I installed on this, but a lot of it is Klipper. Now, I've made a lot of other changes to this printer over the last year and a bit, and most of it has improved the printer. Some of it not so much, but most of it's been improvements. The one thing that I would say is a bit of a side grade, I upgraded to an all-metal hot end, and that sure is a thing, all-metal hot ends. This is like a super fancy titanium copper one, and it's cool. Is it great? If any of you know anything about hot ends, you're going to know what I'm going to say. This is a Bowden tube. This is a lot shorter of a Bowden tube than I used to have, but this is still a Bowden tube. I have a Bowden hot end. To get this working with a direct drive hot end, going to be a bit of a mission. It's in the plans one day. All metal hot ends are not the nicest with Bowden tubes because Bowden tubes need retracts, big retracts. But that's a story for another day. This is a much shorter tube, so it's working fine now. So that's pretty much it. If you can spend the money, and if you are able to mount it easily, and your printer has a firmware or a config file ready to go for it, just do it. It's worth it. The ease of use of the ease of use of Klipper compared to Marlin is it's not even comparable. I mean, this is just editing a text file, whereas Marlin is recompiling your firmware every single time you run it. It's completely different. But expect to have hassles if you have a custom printer or one that isn't very well supported by the community, because Klipper does things very, very differently to Marlin, especially in the way that you set up your pins. Now, for the most part, you can just copy a RAM's config and then just go from there. But there are some things that you are going to need to fight through, and Klipper tends to have a kind of Linux user base, and I don't mean that in the best way, because the creators of Klipper are amazing. The users of Klipper tend to treat Klipper like Linux, in that if you don't know what to do, you kind of get flamed for it if you ask questions. At least that's what I've seen. But that kind of just seems to be the way that open source is going these days. So take that for what it is. Oh, if you're wondering about this is a little Next Thing Co. chip. This is a $9 computer that I am wanting to do a video of. I honestly don't even remember how I got this thing. I've never used it. I don't think I bought this. Yeah, I'm trying to do a video on it, but I don't have the coax out. I don't have a shield to be able to plug into VGA. Not coax, sorry. Composite? Whichever is the shitty one that you use to plug your PS2 into. But anyway, if you want to see a video going through this and seeing if this thing is still worth anything in 2026, keep an eye out.